Well, we're back on Geek Out Loud. I'm Steve Glosson. So glad to be along with you, and it's just going to be an old man yelling at clouds. And we're going to have a fun time geeking out on this episode. We're live at YouTube, Rumble, and Mixler. Who knew? Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to Geek Out Loud, episode 309. Where are the other 308, you ask? On the podcast feed. Check it out if you haven't before. Actually, don't. There's no reason necessarily to go. You know what? There are a few good episodes that are worth going back to, but by and large, I'm going to say if you don't get back to them, that's fine. That's fine. It's not going to hurt anybody's feelings. It's not going to bother anyone. Shouldn't hurt you too much. I do believe we are live at Mixler. I believe we're live at Rumble. I believe we are live at YouTube. So anywhere there's a place to be live, I think we're live. So everyone can double check me on that. And it's good to see everyone hanging out tonight, having a good time. I don't want to apologize to Rebel Force Radio, but I did not realize they were going live tonight to talk Andor. So, look, I can't compete with those guys. They're Rebel Force Radio for crying out loud, but it's good to have friends along with us here in the chat doing the thing. We're going to talk a little Andor later on. We're going to do some Not at Celebration coverage of Star Wars Celebration Japan. We've got the Fantastic Four trailer. The Fantastic Four trailer dropped not long after we finished up last week. I think it was like the next day. The Fantastic Four First Steps trailer dropped. And I've definitely got some thoughts and some things to say about that. And then we've got, if there's time, I'm going to open a Star Wars. This is the Star Wars I will open right here. It's for some reason, I'm seeing it show backwards. I wonder if that's the case across. Let me know, chat. Is this backwards? Or do you see this information here backwards? Because I do for some reason. I don't understand. Anyway, this is Bespin security guard, aka Helder Spinoza. Oh, Helder Spinoza. So Spinoza is going to get open tonight, given time, if we have time. So we'll talk. We'll do all those things and maybe a little more as we get into this whole thing tonight. I say tonight, maybe you're listening later. We had some great feedback on the show last week, and I want to thank everyone who watched, who paid attention, who listened for giving said feedback. We're going to try the YouTube Rumble thing for a little while. You know, we're continuing to go live on Mixler for those who decide that that's what they want. They want Mixler and audio instead of the video. Don't blame you for not wanting the video. AI show just cover my face. Did not work. So that's the show. That's what's coming up on the show. That's what we don't have a game day movie to think. I've got to work on. That's a bit that I'm working on. Got to work on that. Want to thank our Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/geekoutloud. We appreciate every single one of you. Coming soon, episode 2 of Petra Means Rock Out Loud, as we cover the album Come and Join Us. Working on notes for Hulk Out Loud episode 3. And Dave Jones and I will be getting together soon for movies with Steve and Dave. And all kinds of fun little things happening. Tons of ideas. I'm a great idea man, not a great executioner man. So that's where we're at with all of these things. So again, so great to have you guys along with us. And I hate it when people say you guys to people who are listening or watching. So great to have you along with us, and I appreciate you being here. I say all that to say hello. Let's get into our show with some Not at Celebration coverage. Y'all remember Not at Celebration coverage? I do. Here we go. Let's get it on. Wait, dadgummit. You have to have volume. You have to have volume. This may actually get flagged. We had some flags, some copyright flags last week as we played the Christian Bale audio Bible. There was the Batman music under that got flagged, and there was something else. But that's okay. You know, that's fine. We're working at this, so this will probably get flagged too.
It's why you fail.
It's a Not at Celebration update.
A Not at Celebration update.
I was not at Celebration Japan last week as it took off. It was Easter weekend, you know, and that's like the second time I remember them doing a celebration on Easter weekend. I forget which one it was several years ago when they did Star Wars Celebration on Easter weekend, and man, I was just bummed because I was working a job that would not permit me. I'm a pastor, for crying out loud. You can't be gone on Easter Sunday. That's like it's a big dog day, you know. And I think they were down in Orlando and everything. Could have gone, but Easter weekend, you know, kept me from being able to go. And I don't hold it against. I don't hold that against Easter weekend. I hold it against the people who planned Star Wars Celebration. So anyhow, this one's at Japan. I can't make it to Japan, but apparently a lot of people did. Honestly, there was some video game stuff that came out. There was some toy reveals. Dash Rendar, Black Series, that looks like he stepped right out of Dawson's Creek. That's the face. Look, the face sculpt looks like Dawson's Creek. You know what? I know I can do this. Let me find Dash Rendar Black Series and find this image. And I'm telling you, for those, so let's talk about Dash Rendar really quickly. Dash Rendar is the main character from Shadows of the Empire, which was a book that took place between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. This book was released in 95. I think that's 94, 95. I think that's why you've had Prince Xizor come out, and I think they're doing a couple of other Shadows of the Empire specific figures because it's like an anniversary year for it. But Dash Rendar was kind of like, since Han was in Carbonite, he was kind of the substitute Han. And if you ever played it was a great campaign that they did. You had the book, they put out a soundtrack. They scored, and I think was the guy's name Joseph. Someone help me out now. And this is where I'm going to rely on the chat. Was it Joseph McNeely? That did the score, or was that the author of it? Do I have that? I have the CD somewhere because I was buying all things, and there was a CD ROM element to it too, where there was like images and stuff that you could see behind the scenes. Anyway. There was a score. There were toys that were Shadows of the Empire license. There was the video games, or the video game. I know there was N64. I don't know if they did one for PC or not, but it was everything. Comic books that went beyond what the book did and that sort of thing. And it was just a really neat thing. Basically, it was a campaign of release everything but a movie. Steve Perry wrote the book. Joel McNeely, not Joseph McNeely. Thank you, John Phillips, one in the chat. Joel McNeely did the music, and it was really good. There's a neat piece in there where it takes place on Coruscant. Luke is running and hiding. Vader's on Coruscant, and there's kind of like a Force theme versus Imperial March thing that's going on. It's pretty cool. So anyway, Dash Rendar is the Han Solo-esque character in this book. Spoiler alert, he may or may not be dead at the end of the whole thing. So when you think of Dash Rendar, you got to go 90s, not 2000s, and you got to go more what you think of with Han Solo. And there was, let's see. This should be a good way to share this. Nerd Zoic, which, look, I'm not a paid. He's no sponsor of ours, is Nerdzoic, but I'll tell you this. That's where I tend to do the shopping for my toys at, because That's he just does he does a great job. So let's see here. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up, but I need to pull up another thing too first, real quick. Power of the Force. Look, you want to see how the sausage is made? Power of the Force dash Rendar. All right, images. Got to go images on that. Google image search. Google me this. Google me this. So large. Let's make sure we can all see it. I'm sorry, everyone. This is not something I planned to do. I didn't even plan to talk about the toys that were revealed at Star Wars Celebration, but here I am talking about the toys that were revealed at Star Wars Celebration. Really, I think the big one is the Dash Rendar that was revealed. So this is going to be courtesy of Old School Toys. I'm going to bring this up here. This is, and it's really not a great view of it, but let's see here. Well, that's Rod of the Hutt. That's not what I wanted to share this tab instead. There we go. Oh no, see, that's not a good one. I thought I asked for a large. But it's not giving me a large. Tell them Large Marge sent you. Let's see. Maybe this will be a little bit. No, it's got a glare on that. Why can't I find a good picture of a Power of the Force dash Rendar? Why are you doing this to me, Google? I think I hate you, sweet Jesus. No one likes what's happening right now. That's not, is that him? Okay, that is him. Let's see. Here we go. There we go. This will be a little bit better. This is courtesy of eBay, ladies and gentlemen. That'll do you a little bit better there on the YouTube, I believe. So, yeah, that's a little bit better. Anyhow, you see that face? That's the face of a man, got a little scruff going. He's kind of got, the hair is mussed a little bit. This is not a man who's going to take time to have Aaron Aldenreich type hair. This is the type of man who's going to make sure that he's good to go. So let me now pull this guy up, and this is the Dash Rendar that they've given us for the Black Series. I mean, it's Dawson's Creek Dash Rendar is what it is. It's Dash Rendar's Creek. That's what's going on here. So, but I didn't mean to talk about at all. I did not mean to talk about the toys because that wasn't my goal. I wanted to talk more about the news of the day. I just muted myself on YouTube because I removed myself from the stage thinking that I was getting myself back on the stage. I don't know what I'm doing, ladies and gentlemen. Let's not forget that. If this is just audio, I got it. One take Glosson. When we bring in the YouTube live stream element, I don't have a clue. Working on it. Working on trying to do just a little bit better, as they say. So he had a beard in the game. Yes, he did, Ted. You're exactly right. Tintin says, I still have my Shadows of the Empire Zizor in the blister pack. It's a love-hate relationship. Those purple cards, it's his first day. Lakehead Troy is a grandfather, everybody. Didn't realize that. I got a text from Derek today that said, you want to know what makes me feel old? Troy is a grandfather of 3 grandchildren, by the way. So, wow. What a great guy. Anyway, that's not what I was going to talk about when it came to Star Wars Celebration. Star Wars Celebration Japan, one of the big things that came out, there was footage shown of a trailer type thing for Mandalorian and Grogu. There was a release date given, May of 2026, so about a year away. I understand that there are things that are supposed to be for the audience at Celebration. I get that. On these live streams, they will cut away from the footage and not show the footage and just go back to the outside where some rando dude is standing there ready to interview someone else, and that's fine. And then the rest of the show, they're like, "How about that Mandalorian Grogu footage, everybody? Yeah, and okay, that's fine, that's fine. And I understand it's a year out, so you're not going to release this footage or this trailer, but it leaks, so you might as well do it in high quality so people can see it and get the hype train going. That's what I say. So here's the takeaway from Mandalorian Grogu. Grogu swims and it gives me Mario vibes, like just a whoop, 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 whoop kind of thing. That's the sound he makes. Whoop. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Zeb from Rebels. He made a cameo in, was it Book of Boba Fett or was it Mandalorian season 3? I think it was Mandalorian season 3. He made a cameo, and it looks like he's going to at least make an appearance. But I think we kind of already knew that. I think we saw him actually flying in an earlier piece of footage, maybe from D23 or something. Carl Weathers, who passed away, unfortunately, cannot reprise his role as Grief Karga. So they're just, as they like to do at Disney, just replace him completely and not even try to recast the role. Sigourney Weaver is apparently going to be some type of Bounty Hunter Guild bigwig, and that's cool. Sigourney Weaver's cool, Does she replace a Carl's Weather? A Carl's Weather? It's not Carl's Jr. Why do they do that, by the way? Why is it Carl's Jr. instead of Carl Jr.'s? Now, for those of you who are wondering what is Carl's Jr., that means you've lived on the West Coast or the East Coast your whole life. As you get out west, Hardee's becomes Carl's Jr. Anyway, Carl Weathers, not Carl's Weathers, or Ruth's Chris, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. Again, at some point, like, I understand there's like a story behind like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. I get that. But at some point you just change the name. Just change the name to Ruth's Steakhouse or Chris Steakhouse by Ruth. Or, Carl's Jr., just call it Carl's. Don't throw the Jr. on there. I don't know. Anyway, or was there a Carl's and Carl's Jr. is just the junior version of what it used to be? Was Carl's like a Red Robin or something, So you go in, you sit down, a waiter or waitress would come take your order, that sort of thing. And Carl's Jr. is like, this is the fast food version of that. Just come on through. By the way, I do think that Hardee's, a.k.a. Carl's Jr., maybe, I don't know, walk-in dog of fast food breakfast. I don't know that you get a better fast food breakfast anywhere else. Now, I'll say this. Let's talk fast food breakfast really quickly. I know we're still in Star Wars, not at Celebration coverage, but I have derailed myself. Therefore, I will be derailed. Fast food breakfast. McDonald's, has done it, and I guess I'll tell you this: McDonald's has gotten significantly better, like with their quality of biscuit. I enjoy the McDonald's bagel breakfast sandwich, particularly the steak and egg bagel. I don't like them to put the onions on it. I don't need onions in the morning. But I do appreciate what's happening with my voice. I do, Mr. Haney. I do appreciate the steak, egg, and cheese bagel, and I appreciate what they do with it. That steak's a little bit fatty sometimes, get a little gristle, a little fat, but that's fine. That's fine. I hadn't had one in a while. Burger King breakfast is right out. I don't know that Burger King should even be doing breakfast anymore. I've heard that Burger King is struggling, and I just don't know that their breakfast is doing them any favors. So stop spending money on breakfast. Go ahead and open up at 10:30 with your burgers. Work on your fry situation, Burger King. And bring that Whopper back to a place of normalcy, because I think that's your key. That's just my 2 cents. Work on your fries, get rid of some of the little extras. See, here's the thing. Chicken fries, I don't think are the greatest things in the whole wide world, and I think you need to kind of step away from those things or stay in the chicken fries lane and don't try to do chicken nuggets. You try to do too much, Burger King. You can over. You've always been like it used to always be you and McDonald's. Something happened. What happened? I don't know. Wendy's has dipped their toe into breakfast. I've not had Wendy's breakfast, so I can't speak to that. But I also think Wendy's, you've got to get consistent with your service across the board, and or you're going to go the way of the dinosaur. Wendy's just cannot be consistent. You never know what you're going to get when you get to a Wendy's. You don't know if it's going to be nice and clean. You don't know if it's going to be quality service, or you don't know if you're going to wait at a drive-through in a dirty parking lot, for 3 hours waiting on people who don't care to give you good food, and you just don't know if it's going to be any good. A dried out, nasty burger when you get it. So I would say if your breakfast is anything like the rest of your consistency, then you need to step out of the breakfast lane. So right now you got McDonald's versus Hardee's. Chick-fil-A does a good breakfast. Chick-fil-A, great service, all that kind of stuff. But here's the thing with Chick-fil-A. Their biscuit will fall apart on you in a heartbeat. You can't trust a Chick-fil-A biscuit. It's just gonna not be great. Tintin says Hardee's breakfast starts with a biscuit. It's buttered, and then it's buttered again. Well, you've got to put butter over the biscuits when they come out, warm, and get that nice butter across the top, and then you open it up and butter the innards. That's how you do it. I'm trying to think of what other fast food that I'm familiar with the breakfast. I know like a Subway might have a breakfast wrap. Shut up, Subway. That's fake stuff. Dunkin' has tried to get away from just doing, they've got but here's the thing about Dunkin'. When I see their sandwiches, I feel like they're putting pre-cooked eggs in a microwave and pre-cooked sausage in a microwave and slapping it on one of their, whatever they've got, whether it's a croissant or that's how you're supposed to say croissant. 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 That's the capital planet in Star Wars. Croissant. Where was I? Oh, Dunkin'. Yeah. Love Dunkin's coffee. Okay with Dunkin's donuts. I haven't even tried their breakfast. I just don't want to step into that world because I don't want a rubbery reheated egg. So, that's about what I got, as far as fast food. And so I'm going to say, as far as fast food breakfast goes, I do feel like it's Hardee's. But again, Hardee's or Carl's Jr., I know with Hardee's in our area, and I don't mean just my town, but I mean like in the South, it's a crapshoot as to what kind of Hardee's you're walking into. You could be walking into one of these places that surprise you with quality and friendliness and just great service and good food, or you could be walking into the equivalent of a broken down retiree who is just giving up on life, and has nothing left to give, with ashtrays still with cigarette butts from the 1980s in them, sitting out on the table. So it's just a toss up, and what you get's what you get. What were we talking about? Mandalorian and Grogu footage shown. I think the big thing to come out of Mandalorian and Grogu, as far as anything goes with news, was this image in the trailer, and I'm showing it. Everyone is saying that this is Rada the Hutt. Rada was the baby Hutt back in the first ever Clone Wars anything to come out, the Clone Wars movie that came out, where we were introduced to Ahsoka. And the whole mission was save Rada from the Separatists who were going to kill him and blame it on the Jedi and get Jabba to turn on the Republic and all this other stuff. He looks kind of buff for a Hutt. We're used to Hutts being fat and sluggish, and I think there's something in the comics where that kind of took place, but I'm not well read enough in the comics to be sure. So that's an interesting thing. Apparently we're going to see Rada the Hutt in an arena battle of some sort, an arena fight, I guess he grew up and decided to be a wrestler. The other thing that really kind of surprised me coming out of Star Wars Celebration, this wasn't on my radar. I knew they were going to do like a Visions thing again, but Maul, Shadow Lord, is going to be debuting. It's an animated series, I think. Asajj Ventress is in it. Darth Maul, of course, in it. And I think the whole idea is Darth Maul building the criminal empire that he's building. It takes place, according to Sam Witwer, a year after Order 66. So you might be running up into, I don't know how Bad Batch ended, but you may be running up into the Bad Batch stuff. I don't know. Maul is safe. We know he doesn't die until Rebels, so that's fine. I think Dave Filoni is helming this thing, so there's that legacy of storytelling to go along with Dave's legacy of storytelling. It appears that we're going to get every little detail between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope filled in for us, between things like this and what happened with the end of the Clone Wars, which was awesome. It was great to see, but on Ahsoka's end, with Rebels, with Andor, with Rogue One, with Solo, with all of these different projects, apparently Bad Batch, we're going to get every detail of everything that happened, because now there's talk of a Leia series when she's a teenager. Newsflash, she was 19, barely, if not quite 20, when A New Hope happened. So when the original Star Wars happens, you're dealing with a 19, 20-year-old. So what are we dealing with? 13, 14? Apparently the same little girl who played her in the Kenobi series will be playing her, which is fine. Not against that at all. I'm not against, but again, we're in this same era and we're learning, and every gap is being filled in. And when that happens, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit with Andor, when we start getting this much information of the story between point A and point B, look, that kind of thing works, I guess, maybe for Lord of the Rings, but I don't know. In the Star Wars mythology, it just seems like too much, because Star Wars originally was told in such a way that, well, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the mythology of Star Wars just a little bit, in the storytelling of Star Wars. In the first Star Wars movie, when you have Ben and Luke talking in the in Ben's house, and Ben's talking about, Anakin was a good pilot, and a great pilot, and a good friend. He gets this far off look, and you're thinking, man, this must have been deep in the past. This must have been so long ago. Well, it was 20 years ago, 19 years ago. You're not talking about 30, 40, 50 years ago. You're not talking about a 70-year-old man looking back in his 20s. You're talking about, a guy who's apparently in his 60s looking back in his 40s, if that, in his 50s looking back at his 30s. And so, I don't know. It's suddenly, when you realize that timeline, it kind of, and now what have we done? We've tried to fill in why Obi-Wan looks so old compared to what he was in Revenge of the Sith, compared to what he was a few years later in Kenobi. We've tried to start to shoehorn those kinds of things in, and well, it's a desert and it's tough living, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with all that, but what I am saying is that when we start to try to answer those kinds of questions, the type of storytelling that George Lucas was doing, which was kind of like, well, we're just going to throw some things out there, we're going to make some blanket statements, and then just let your imagination fill it in. You lose some of that with Star Wars when you start to fill in all the gaps and you start to tell all the little stories. And you also run the risk of getting pretty boring. We'll talk about that a little bit when we get to Andor. So, anyhow, Maul, Shadow, it looks cool. I'm not against it. I understand something. I'm not saying I'm against it, but I am saying that, like, there are going to have to be some real compelling stories to be told, with this, or it's going to be kind of strange, to be rooting, if you will, for Maul. Then Sean Levy and Ryan Gosling were there to talk about the Sean Levy helmed Star Wars project that's going to be called Starfighter. 5 years apparently after the rise of Skywalker. Look, I'm just going to say this and take it for what it is. I'll believe it when it's released. When it's actually in a theater and you can buy tickets to go see it, I'll believe it then, because and people have said, when I said that to someone else in real life, they said, well, it's already they're about to start pre-production and everything. I said, about to start pre-production, or they've already started. They filmed a whole butt little thing with Patty Jenkins talking about how much she loves air travel and piloting and all this other stuff to get ready for like Rogue Squadron, to announce that she was going to be directing Rogue Squadron, and she got an X-wing, for crying out loud, and flies off. They filmed a whole butt thing of that for her. What do you mean it's almost in pre-production? They were filming Solo when they absolutely fired Miller and Lord and brought in Ron Howard, to varying degrees of compliments or criticisms, depending on who you talk to. There have been so many things. This is going up. It's not going now. This is going. Oh, it's not. And it doesn't matter how much in production or pre-production or script writing or storytelling or story breaking it's in. At this point, when it's released, I'll believe it. And I'm sorry for that level of snark on Geek Out Loud, but that's where I'm at with this thing. Pre-production means very little in Lucasfilm. Now, again, I'll go back to and I've heard other people say this, and I don't mean to rip off Jason and Jimmy Mac, but I totally agree with them when people say, well, this kind of stuff happens in Hollywood all the time, but they don't publicize it. They don't come out and make the big announcements and then let it flop. Some things like that have happened. Jeff Lane says, I agree. Just like music, sometimes the silence between the notes makes it better. Don't need to fill in every space. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, but I'm not saying that the stories are bad or that it's pointless to do it. I'm just saying that, it kind of takes away a little bit from the mythology of everything else. And Ted and I are on the same page. I'll agree it when I see it. We're live at YouTube. We're live at Rumble. We're live at Mixler. Hope you can join us live when we go live. I'm going to try to be doing this a little bit consistently, moving forward, and not just be an old man yelling at the clouds. So come hang with us when you can. Don't forget to like and subscribe and all that stuff. However that works on Rumble, do that there. Do the liking, subscribing, sharing thing on YouTube. Apparently it helps with the dreaded algorithm, and we'll appreciate you guys helping us out with that. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little Andor. How about that? Here's what this is what I feel like I'm about to be. So, prepare your heart. Old man yelling at clouds. That's me. We'll be right back on Geek Out Loud.
Since the dawn of ice cream, we've been looking for the best way to enjoy our favorite frozen treat. From the creators of Sasquatch Stick and Silky Buddy comes a revolutionary way to enjoy your ice cream. The Big Honkin' Ice Cream Sandwich.
That's one of my favorite treats in the world is an ice cream sandwich.
It's just ice cream sandwich, and I was thinking all day I gotta have some ice cream.
Just trying to get an ice cream sandwich that had fallen out back into the freezer.
Oh, thank God, ice cream sandwich. I smushed it a little falling in.
I totally understand going after an ice cream sandwich.
The Big Honkin' Ice Cream Sandwich could cause headaches, memory loss, delusions, or possibly concussions. Use only as directed.
That is from the classic Big Honkin' Show with myself and Buck back in the day. Jimmy in Georgia, who now resides in Missouri, made that commercial, and we greatly appreciate it. So Andor season 2 has begun. It's a neat way that they are doing things with Andor this go around. They're actually releasing 3 episodes a week, almost like a movie of the week kind of thing. However, the episodes do begin and end, and when you start up the next episode, it's like skip recap and all that good stuff. I don't know that I spoke a lot about season 1 of Andor. Not a big fan of Andor season 1. I know a lot of people were. I maintain that Andor, you could have taken out all the Star Wars elements of that series and had a really great science fiction miniseries, television series kind of thing. Uh, it did, but it's like Tony Gilroy wrote this thing and said, I'll make it Star Wars. I want to get this done, so I'll make it Star Wars. It was boring for a huge chunk of it and hopeless for most of it. And then you get to the end, and I like the lady's speech. I don't remember anybody's name except Cassian Andor, to be honest with you. And this and Mon Mothma, because she's, classic Star Wars, OT Star Wars character. So, I don't want to slag it. I don't want to go off too much on anything. I will say this. I'm glad they're doing this kind of format of 3 episodes at a time, because if I'd have watched the first episode, which I thought was great, it had a great way to starting out, and it stealing the TIE fighter, whatever kind of TIE fighter that is. It's not quite a TIE interceptor. And everything, he did with that. Really cool, fun time. You've got the inside person there at at Sinar Systems. That's Sinar. That's a classic EU kind of place. So there's some neat elements there. But then the rest of the episode kind of happens, and you're like, okay, it's cool to see Krennic. I guess he's obsessed with the Death Star project. All this other stuff is going on, and just a lot of talk. It's a lot of political intrigue, and that's fine, I guess. Here's the thing. Everyone who loves this so much are the people who are complaining about the taxation of trade routes in the Phantom Menace. We didn't really talk that much about the taxation of trade routes. It was mentioned in the opening crawl. It was mentioned in the Senate scene. And you had to have that type of tension to have the Trade Federation want to take over Naboo, that got Palpatine the sympathy vote in the Senate so that he could become chancellor, and then boom, we're off to the races. It was all part of the plan, the grand plan, as it were. So, but this is just like, we're fun. And I know you've got to fund the rebellion. You've got to have all this stuff. But again, that takes away from the fantasy mythology aspect of everything that's going on. It's more slow moving storytelling. And some people love that. But Star Wars is faster, more intense. And I think when we forget that, I don't know. I want to make. I'm not mad at Andor. I'm not mad at the first season. I'm not mad at the second season, but it's like it almost gets there, and then something happens to kind of pull you out of. Well, oh, here we're in Star Wars now. And in this instance, it was just kind of the weird boringness. The paper, rock, scissors for who's going to do things. That's the other thing. He crash landed on this planet, and we spend so much time with him in peril with these people who are about to kill him, but he's kind of in control really mostly the whole time. And it's something that if this were a movie, it would have been 15 minutes of the movie. But as it were like it was an episode and a half of this, so we could build tension with what was going on with Brix. Is that her name? Brix and the dude that Little John that looks like Little John from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. So I look, and then you've got the stuff with Mon Mothma, and it's getting tense. But I don't know who those people are. I know who Stellan Skarsgård is. I know that he was in the first season, and he's kind of he's pulling the strings of everything. I get that, but like the stuff with her husband and the guy who she may or may not have been romantically linked to, the guy who made sure she had the funds that she needed, and that that no money loss to be traced back to her, and all this other stuff. And then there was the weird thing where the dude got in the car, and did anything ever happen to him? His driver apparently was not friendly with him and was going to kill him or something, but that ever happened? Did we ever see it? Then before you know it, she's out there drinking and dancing. And I know that it's meant to convey she's just kind of giving herself over to the moment and wanting to forget the stress and the tension, and so she's just letting it all out on the dance floor. You go, Mon Mothma. But man, it was just, I'm sorry, the let us have this dance, and you had the whole harpsichord thing playing, and they're doing what looks to be dances. It was earthbound dances. I'm sorry, when they're putting their hand up and they're stepping in circles and they're stepping in time. That's straight out of like Earth Victorian era kind of stuff, and we don't need that. And then the robot disco ball comes in and plays the dum, 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 dum. I will say this, there are musical numbers in Star Wars in the original trilogy. So I'm not against musical numbers in universe at all. I like having this weird techno stuff better than I like the Imperial March being played at a parade for the Empire in Rebels. But I'm going to think about the Cantina Band, not how they looked, but how they sounded. That's an obviously it's earthbound instruments making that music, but it didn't sound like anything necessarily of Earth. Now, Return of the Jedi. In the original theatrical Return of the Jedi, the non-special edition, Lapti Nek sounded out of this world. It did not sound as though it was from this world. Now, when you hear Earth's version, URTH version of it, yeah, it does for sure sound more of this world. But what we got on screen in Return of the Jedi in that original stuff, and if I were any type of editor, for those of you listening via the podcast, I would go back in and slip in underneath me talking these things, but I'm no kind of editor. And we can't do it on YouTube because, they were like, copyright strike, you're playing Lapti Nek, a song that doesn't technically exist in the world of Star Wars anymore. So weird. Anyway. Oh, the music. So now I know Jedi Rocks is a little bit different. I feel like Jedi Rocks is a little bit more earthy sounding, of this world rather than from a galaxy far, far away. Outside of Yowza, the Yuzum singing, Huttese or whatever it is he's singing, but the big brass and everything else, it didn't sound as wild as Max Rebo Band did in the non-special editions. This music sounded very much, in Andor, sounded very much like it came straight from Earth. And I think that's been some of the issue with Star Wars series on Disney Plus in general, is oftentimes there's a little bit too much planet Earth in those things. So I would say to, and you can comment below. What do you think? Am I wrong? Am I just an idiot that doesn't get Star Wars music? I don't know. But I will say this, that in Book of Boba Fett, there's like a chase scene going on, or someone's getting chased around the kitchen at Jabba's palace. And they did nothing to those stainless steel tables that you see in restaurants everywhere, in kitchens of restaurants everywhere. They did nothing to those pots and pans and stainless steel tables to make them look like they were not from this world. They literally went to a restaurant supply store, took the stainless steel tables, put them in the room, and filmed them as is. I don't know if that's because they were borrowing them, they were renting them, or what, but it's just absolutely it. I was having worked in a few kitchens, I was taken aback in that moment in Book of Boba Fett. So I'm not, I'm not, again, not mad about this stuff, but I'm just saying that there are times where Andor does not feel like Star Wars, or they pull it way too far out from a galaxy far, far away. And that kind of then gets us to it gets us to the end with Bricks and the Imperial officer and everything that goes on. When the Imperial officer first shows up and speaks with Bricks at the silo, there's enough tension there without going any further. The fact that she and Little John from Robin Hood Prince of Thieves and their little box droid are on that planet illegally, and they're worried of being found out. There's enough tension there, especially knowing where they come from. They come from the rebellion on that one planet that they were on in the first season. Again, don't know any names, don't know any planet names. By the way, spoiler alert, as Andor is getting away from those weird people in the jungle, it's revealed to be Yavin 4. So, was that supposed to be the rendezvous point at that point? Is Cassian the one who says, hey, there's a safe place on Yavin, we can go there? Let's, again, remember back at Phantom Menace when there was a whole scene, a deleted scene where Anakin's beating up Greedo because Greedo says he cheated, and Wald says, yes, ascolta, Greedo, meaning, watch yourself, Greedo, it's going to get you killed one day. And everyone's like, oh, that makes the universe so small. Anakin creating C-3PO makes the universe so small. The galaxy's so small because of this. Oh, R2-D2's with Padme, that's so small. I don't know why I did that. Well, now what? Is the universe getting smaller here? I don't know. I'm just saying, let's be consistent in our criticisms. Anyway, so they're on the planet, and there's enough tension because we know the Empire is evil. We know that these low-level officers like this guy are going to generally be power abusers. So you don't need the whole scene where he's attacking her, and not just attacking her because she's, illegal trash, but because he's going to assault her. And then she names the assault, and again, it's like a science fiction show where we slap Star Wars characters and ships in there and call it Star Wars, because that kind of stuff isn't necessarily have a place in Star Wars. And listen, I've seen people say, well, a show that has genocide and slavery throughout, you're going to have this too, the movie series. Look, did they blow up Alderaan? They sure did. But here's the thing. There's not a scene like in Rogue One from the surface of Alderaan. The destruction of Krypton is more personal than what we see when Alderaan gets blown up. When you see destruction of Krypton in Superman, the movie, and you have the people falling falling off all the crystals and everything, and Jor-El and Lara running around. That's more personal than the destruction of Alderaan in the movie. The destruction of the Death Star, is less personal than some of those things. And they move on from it so quickly, because we're not going to sit in, obviously it's a traumatic thing, but this type of storytelling demands move beyond that. So the fact that the Empire is there, and the fact that they have now come face-to-face contact with the Empire, and the fact that they're trying to get away and everybody's not where they're supposed to be to get away from where the Empire is, and that leads to that confrontation, that's enough. You don't need the other on top of that. When it comes to themes of slavery, I think it's always been understood that the Wookiees were enslaved to the Empire for a while. We saw that in Solo in action on Kessel. But outside of that, it was always Slave Leia. We called her Slave Leia because that was, I don't know where that came from. It's just one of those things that kind of came about. It's Leia in slave outfit kind of thing. And so shorthand became Slave Leia. Boba Fett's ship was Slave One, and slave's now a dirty word, and I get it. I understand that it's bad, but Anakin being a slave, you get the sense that the slavery on Tatooine or in the galaxy at that time was not so much Western stealing people from homes and families and putting them on auction blocks kind of thing, as much as it was Roman Empire. There were more slaves than free people, a lot of debt slavery, a lot of indentured servitude sort of things. And so I don't know. I'm just saying, it obviously was part of that culture in Star Wars at the time, but it's done in such an impersonal way, and and it's kind of there as a fact of society in the same way that it would have been in the Roman Empire back in the day, in ancient times, I should say. I think when you go back in the day, that can't be ancient times. I think ancient times has to be said as ancient times. I think back in the day is 1980, 1970s. I think that Roman Empire gets a little bit different treatment than back in the day. I guess what I'm saying is again, it comes to it comes to the point of that broad strokes painting. Anakin being a slave and winning his freedom in the pod race and not being able to free his mother and coming back to Tatooine too late to save his mother, all plays into his turn to Darth Vader. That's all there is to it. And we're told by Padme in The Phantom Menace, the Republic's anti-slavery laws are there, but okay, hold on. I missed this because I got on a roll. Jeff Lane says, what about the horses and bunnies and the Ewoks Caravan of Courage? Straight up Earth animals. Absolutely, straight up Earth animals. Dave and I talked about this when we watched listen, we don't call it Caravan of Courage in my house. It's called the Ewok Adventure in my house because that's what it was called in the States when it came on the TV, the Ewok Adventure. Derailed again. I need AI. I need a picture of a train derailing now. Haven't got that figured out yet. So I say all that to say this: broad strokes, more of a mythological way out look at things rather than in your face abuse and assault kind of stuff that took place at the end of Andor. Does it have no place in Star Wars? I don't know. Leia was tortured in the Death Star. We don't see that in the film. We see that droid coming at her with the big needle. If you listen to the audio drama, the radio drama, you hear it, and it's very uncomfortable. I don't know that it has a place in the way we tell Star Wars stories. I'm one person, and this is one person's opinion. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Comment below. Let me know what you think. It's fine. It's fine to have different opinions. But for me, as I sat there and saw that, I said, it's not Star Wars. It is what a grown-up wants Star Wars to be. And this is the other thing I'll say. Look, I've seen, and I'm now responding to criticisms that I've seen online over the past 36 hours or so. George always said, like I know him, it's for 12-year-olds, it's for 10-year-old, it's for 10-year-olds, it's for kids. I want to make something for kids. Well, then they say, well, Rick McCallum said these Underworld scripts were dark and sexy and all this. They're totally sexy, these Underworld things. Well, look, Rick McCallum is, if nothing else, a salesman. But you're also comparing what Underworlds, these scripts that will never probably see the light of day, to what had been established in Star Wars. And I think maybe the darkest thing we saw in Star Wars is the immolation scene in Revenge of the Sith when Anakin gets burned alive. Outside of that, I don't know that there's much darker that we've seen. Now in Clone Wars, there was some stuff, and there were some themes that were dealt with. And if you remember, Clone Wars early on had a really hard time of finding the balance between, are we a grown-up show or are we a kid's show? Right to the point of like, we would just throw language in there for the heck of it. Because we're not kids around here, we're grown-ups. I go back to what I always like to say about Star Wars is I grew up with Star Wars, but I don't know that Star Wars grew up with me. And I don't think it's wrong to sit here and say that we don't need themes that are too adult in the Star Wars. I think that it's okay to have, again, to leave some things to the imagination, you don't have to see the shark all the time. The threat just has to be there. And honestly, in watching those episodes, just the fact that the Empire showed up on the wheat planet, was enough tension for me to say, you people need to get out of there. Like I was kind of like, get out of there, get out of there. What are you doing? Get out of there. I haven't heard from Andor. It doesn't matter. Cassian's not coming. Get out of there. That kind of thing. Of course, Cassian shows up and saves the day, and it's as anticlimactic as that fight in the warehouse in season 1. Early on it's just there. It happened. Someone died, and that's sad. But now we're going to move on. And so apparently next week is like a year later from that. And we'll get all the repercussions of Mon Mothma dancing look, it's nice to see a little emotion come from Mon Mothma because, remember, this is what we got from her in Return of the Jedi. Many Bothans died to bring us this information. I mean, she was full shell shock by the time you get to Return of the Jedi. So, but yeah, that's Andor, and that's kind of my take on what went down in Andor. And I would like it. I mean, am I gonna watch next week? Of course, I'm gonna watch next week. Why wouldn't I? It maybe it'll be better. I'm looking forward to K2SO showing up. I always like K2SO in Rogue One, and so looking forward to him maybe showing up, and we'll see what happens there. So what else has transpired since last we spoke? Yes, more old man yelling at clouds coming up in just a second, because we are going to discuss the Fantastic Four First Steps trailer that came out. So that'll be fun. Do we have Superman stuff to talk about? There was a behind-the-scenes look at Superman that was pretty cool. I'm now... Listen, I was trying to go live, and I ran out of time, and so I'm now going noteless, ladies and gentlemen. Prepare your hearts. We'll take a break, and we'll be right back after this.
Sure, you've got your Sasquatch stick and statue, but have you actually seen a Squatch in person? Well, come on down to Hazelhurst, Georgia for Coach's Bigfoot in My Backyard.
He said, I'm going to charge $50 a head to come sit down on the back porch and see Bigfoot in my backyard. Tickets to the foot show, you know what I'm saying? What happens if we don't see it? And he said he'd only charge them half price the following night. So we can make some money off of that. Steve Crowder, one half of the infamous Crowder Boys, says, Coach, real life superhero.
Void where prohibited. Sasquatch may or may not be Steve Glosson in the gorilla suit.
We're back. We're back here on Geek Out Loud. We're streaming live at YouTube, streaming live at Rumble, and we're streaming live at Mixler. Glad to have everyone who's with us here with us live. Appreciate you guys hanging with us as we are here. I don't know. Let's see. I want to come back here and see what we got. There's a list out there of all the announced canceled. That's right. John Phillips says. And says she'd already been tortured in the first season. And see, I forgot all about that. I forgot that she'd been captured and tortured. Here's what I remember from the first season that really sticks out. The prison stuff, which was interesting, but it just took too long to get to a conclusion. And then the the speech at the end, with the lady, whatever her name was, bringing it to get everyone to do their thing. So, let's see here. I stopped sharing the screen. I didn't mean to share this. Didn't mean to stop sharing the screen. All right. We're going to do this, and we're going to do it live. We are going to check out this Fantastic Four First Steps trailer and do it up. So, here we go. Fantastic Four First Steps.
Wow, folks, we all know the story. 4 brave astronauts head up into space and come back forever changed.
This car?
Our city, our planet, owe a debt to these intrepid souls. And while we can never repay them, we can certainly celebrate them.
Thank you, Fantastic Thank you.
Thank you, Fantastic Four! Please welcome the Fantastic Four.
All right, I'm going to stop it right there and talk a little bit about this thing. So, what we've got thus far is you've got a world that really likes the Fantastic Four. Obviously, we know this is in a different universe. We know that that this is a universe where everything's kind of stuck in the 60s, and that's why you get your Art Deco. That's why you got kids going down the street basically in soapbox derby type cars. That's why you've got this talk show where they're going to come out and everything. So lean into the pain, he says. I'm going to. And I mean, okay, as a concept, it's pretty cool, especially given where we are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We can't just suddenly say, well, the Fantastic Four has been here all along. They just didn't step up and help against Thanos and all this other stuff. And apparently they don't want to say, well, here's a new group of heroes that are coming in to do this, which they could easily do that as well. Instead, we're going to do this other universe thing, and that's going to lead into the whole Secret War stuff and everything. And that's fine. That's great. Like, look, that's a choice that's being made, and that's okay. And so I'm fine with that. Now, here we got to see those kids shout to the thing, lift the car. And he's like, this car? I am not a fan of the Thing's voice. I don't understand. In every iteration we've ever had of okay, you know what? Let's just watch it, and then we'll go back and we'll do the thing where we talk.
Back forever changed.
This car?
Our city, our planet, owe a debt to these intrepid souls. And while we can never repay them, we can certainly celebrate them.
Thank you, Fantastic Four. Thank you.
Thank you, Fantastic Four! Please welcome the Fantastic Four.
Herbie, how's that sauce looking? Okay. That's fantastic.
You're late.
What do you mean?
What do you mean, what do I mean? You're late for dinner.
Yes, we are.
You late?
I just said that.
Are you pregnant?
What? You're gonna be the best mom in the world. And you are gonna be the best dad. Just kidding. You are out of your depth. We are gonna be the best uncles ever.
We can do this. Nothing's going to change.
Are you the protectors of this world?
Yes, we are.
Your planet is now marked for death.
It's my fault. I stretched the bounds of space.
And they hurt.
Are we safe?
I don't know.
That's not enough time.
I'm not giving up. We will face this together. We will fight it together. As a family. Has to be us.
We will protect you.
All right, presented in Fantastivision. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Whoa, now, hold on. What's happening? Sorry about that. Oh, I've got an autoplay. Stop. Okay, now, let's talk about what we enjoy. Let's talk about what I like. Let's talk about the good things that I'm seeing. I am okay with the 60s kind of thing. There's that shot where Reed is stretching and he's bouncing off of some debris that's falling. That feels right out of the comic. I mean, look at that. And it looks like he's carrying something, and you can see it looks to be maybe the hand of Galactus that's coming down and crushing a building, or maybe he's stepping there. I think that what Reed is holding there may be like one of his crazy plans of like, we got to get this planet here and this planet there to disrupt him. I love it. The boots of Galactus at the end, like they're Galactus's boots. Like there's no doubting that. Like we're getting the right Galactus here. It's not a being in a storm, or it's not just some storm kind of thing. I like the look of the thing. They've got a very much I'm going to say really a John Byrne kind of look to them. They've got the defined brow. They've got, the dome head. The CGI looks pretty good. Like it doesn't look bad. It's not a man in a suit. Look, Michael Chiklis in the suit was not bad at all. The face, because they could not do the defined brow and everything, it caused him to look a little different. I guess he looked maybe closer to early Thing by Jack Kirby, from like issue 1 and the first couple of issues before he got all rocky and cracky like he is. I like the look. I'm okay with the outfits. The thing that that I just have to accept is that I've had to accept is that in these movies, so that you can have some dimension and texture and that sort of thing, that you're not going to have just spandex suits on these people, that there's going to have to be a little bit of, I don't know, just a little bit of definition that goes beyond, what spandex can do. So these suits, and they also seem a little more functional than just, unstable moleculed spandex. But I do like they're blue and white like they're supposed to be. That's cool. I like the family aspect, the fact that they are a family, that they have dinner together every week. We saw that in some clips and everything, and so that's what they're doing. They're making dinner, and when it's let it be known that Sue is pregnant, there's excitement there. Johnny's excited about it. Ben's excited, and it's a family there, and that's what the Fantastic Four is supposed to be. Absolutely cool with this. I think it has such great potential. There are people, I saw someone that said, oh, Galactus is a universe eater, yet he looks like he's the size of Godzilla, blah, 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 yaggity schmaggity, blah, blah. And it wasn't even Scott Ryan that said that. All you have to do is go back and look at the original Coming of Galactus storyline, and you'll see that, yeah, he's kaiju size, basically, in those things. That's the thing about Galactus. He's going to be as big or as small as the story needs him to be. And he's a planet eater, not a universe eater. The universes are going to have problems with these incursions. It's not going to be Galactus. Galactus is coming to devour the world. That's why the Silver Surfer says, are you the protector? Are you the guardians of this world? He's a devourer of worlds. So this is, hold on a second before we go there. Let's just hold on a second. I think it's fine. Okay. Here's the stuff that I don't like too much. I'm not a big fan of his voice, Ben Grimm's voice, the Thing's voice. And I know that you're like, well, just because it's never been this way don't mean it can't be this way. You understand that it's not just in the 90s we had a cartoon with Ben Grimm's voice this way. And it's not just that Michael Chiklis gave us his voice. When you go all the way back to the earliest depictions of the Fantastic Four outside of the comic books, when they were voiced, you had a rough, gruff Ben Grimm. You had that type of voice. Like it sounds like rocks. His throats are made of rocks, and to not do that, to have just a smooth, all right, okay, yeah, is this the car you kids want me to lift up? That's fine. I'll do it right now. I'm glad that people accept him. It's cool to see him wearing clothes, because in Fan Four Stick, he did not. But also, that's a classic, again, that's a classic Stan Lee, Jack Kirby kind of thing. The Thing would be there in, in trench coats and hats and that sort of thing. And he had a uniform that he could wear that wasn't just, the wrestling trunks. fine with just the wrestling trunks on the thing. You know, that's his business. That's how he wants to go out. That's fine. So I'm not a big fan of the voice. Outside of that, everything looks pretty cool. You know, it's a cool concept. I have no problems with anything at all else in this trailer at all. There's not one single solitary issue of anything. Not a problem. Shala Ball is the lover, don't like that word, but I'll use it, of Norrin Radd, the original Silver Surfer from the comic books. In order to save her and the rest of his planet, Norrin Radd gave himself over to Galactus to be his herald and go and hunt down planets for him to devour. That is what happened. Shala Ball was left behind, and the Silver Surfer was left to travel the cosmos alone on his silver board. When he betrayed Galactus on Earth, Galactus bound him to the planet Earth, and the Silver Surfer continually tried to leave and could not until one day he finally did. In the year 2000, there was, for lack of a better term, an Elseworlds alternate future story called Earth X that was released, created by Jim Kruger. Alex Ross did covers. John Paul Leon was involved. And in said series, in number 12, the final issue of the series, Shala Ball became a Silver Surfer. So then she was killed in the same issue. So you had one issue, and then literally like a part of an issue with this character as a Silver Surfer type character. There are people who will tell you this is not gender swapping a role. She's already been the Silver Surfer in the comics. And they're referencing Earth X number 12. And that's about it. So, you know, I'm sorry. She was brought up in the sequel again, Universe X, in a couple of issues of Universe X, which was the sequel to Earth X. Fine. The point is this. It's just like Venom. The Venom movies are fine. They are what they are. But it's not really Venom without Spider-Man. I know he's the lethal protector and all this other stuff, but Venom was created because he was the symbiote that Spider-Man was wearing as a costume. And when he realized it was a symbiote and it was draining his energy, he got rid of it. So the symbiote's mad at Peter Parker, and then he finds Eddie Brock, who was mad at Peter Parker for outing him for faking some photographs, and boom, they join forces to kill and I'm talking comic books here, kill Peter Parker. He's crazy. Venom's crazy, and he's after Peter no matter the cost. So anyway, in the same way, this Shala Ball, Silver Surfer, version of the Silver Surfer, I'm sorry, you can't have her without Norrin Radd. It just makes no sense. You can say what you want to say, and we talked a little bit about this last week, that what's happening here is there is an agenda that is pushed here because here's the thing. You'll never get Norrin Radd as the Silver Surfer on the big screen ever again. Not in my lifetime. You will never see a theatrical depiction of Norrin Radd as the Silver Surfer because The minute, even if they do Secret Wars and you've got the whole other universe now, it's just one universe, even if they said, well, now it's Norrin Rad like it was supposed to be originally, there's going to be outrage from the outrage crew over here that says, well, you can't do that. You're taking a woman's job from her and giving it to a man. Meanwhile, right now, you've got the outrage crew over here like, this is absolutely stupid. Marvel's ruining everything. Blah, blah, blah. Yakety smackety, blah, blah. And then there's little old me in the middle who just loves the Fantastic Four. When I began collecting comic books, there were, oh man, I don't even have them here. I don't have them in reach. They're back there. But I found in our school library these great little books that they were hardcover in the library. I've got the paperback editions. My wife found and gave them to me for Christmas several years ago. And they were the things that I loved, Super Friends and the Hulk and Superman and Spider-Man is Amazing Friends as a kid. I loved watching those shows. I was very intrigued by superheroes, but I never really got into comics until I was in the library in 5th grade and I saw this book about the Fantastic Four, and it had and what I recognized was The Thing. And so I got it, and it gave you all the information about who they were, how they got their powers. There were reprints of certain issues of the comic in there, and I devoured that thing. It was, small. It wasn't anything major. It was a 5th grade reading level or lower, It was for kids. Well, that started me on a path of I want to buy comics and see what's out there, And the Fantastic Four so intrigued me, they became one of my go-to comics. And I collected the Fantastic Four and read the Fantastic Four for years and years and years and years and years. I would seek out back issues and had a, let's see, I remember as a kid, I realized I'd gotten my run complete from 300 to wherever we were in the timeline, like close to 350, 360, something like that. And so I'm like, ooh, I can start going to comic shops whenever I'm in a town that has a comic shop and start filling in even further back. And I think at one point I had finally gotten the full run of 200 to 300 complete or almost complete. And just was super jazzed about that, and that was because as a kid, you're just spending, what money you make cutting grass and trying to find the best deals on these little comics here and there. And honestly, you're not going to find too many Fantastic Four issues that are like Hulk 181. You're not going to find any Fantastic Four issue that has that kind of power to it that's after about issue 100. All the big issues of Fantastic Four take place prior to issue number 100. But there's some great stories. And John Byrne had a great run in there in the 80s. And, I really liked the Steve Englehart run of the early 300s when the Thing got mutated and everything. My point is this. I was reading the Fantastic Four, and I loved these characters, and I loved what they brought to the table. And so I liked the Tim Story films in the early 2000s. I did not enjoy Fan Stick because I didn't really care for Ultimate Fantastic Four over in the comics. So Fan Stick was not my jam. At this point, right now, the in contention for the best Fantastic Four movie are two movies. One would be the never released Fantastic Four movie from the 90s. The reason I say that is because the people who were making that, if you've not seen the documentary Doomed, it's about the making of that Fantastic Four movie. Roger Corman helmed it, and they were making it just so the studio could keep the rights to those characters. They never intended for it to see the light of day. Low budget, but it was the characters. It was the Fantastic Four and Doctor Doom on screen. The effects are terrible. The costumes are kind of wonky, but it has a certain charm to it, and it's worth hunting down and watching if you can. And if you can find the documentary Doomed, I would check that out as well. That and The Incredibles. The Incredibles kind of feels like the Fantastic Four. And the fact that Incredibles is set in kind of a space that's Art Deco and everything like this movie, it works. I'm stoked to see Galactus where we can actually see the person and the figure of Galactus on screen. I think that's really a neat thing. That means we're going to see the big ships and that sort of thing. Where are the mole men? Well, it's Mole Man and his moloids. Look, the one thing we're seeing all this focus on the Silver Surfer and Galactus, and what we're not seeing is what the talk show host is talking about at the beginning, that obviously the Fantastic Four is established. So I'm thinking in flashbacks, we may get like glimpses of some of the Mole Man's big monsters attacking the city, or I don't know that we'll get Doctor Doom, but maybe the Red Ghost, and maybe, maybe the Puppet Master. Maybe we'll see a little bit of some, maybe not Skrulls necessarily. That's where they got, by the way, Skrulls got their start, they got their introduction in the pages of the Fantastic Four. But maybe we'll see some of those early adventures in kind of a flashback, quick cameo kind of snapshot kind of thing. And I think that'd be really cool if they do that. So Ted asked this, is Robert Downey Jr. going to make an appearance? That's really kind of the question, isn't it? Because Doctor Doom is a Fantastic Four villain, and he is the villain, really, of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And apparently, Tony Stark is Doctor Doom. Robert Downey Jr. is Doctor Doom. So I don't know. I can't. I wouldn't see why not. He's got to be introduced somewhere. Based on what we're seeing in this trailer, I don't know that he's going to play a big role. But I don't see him being introduced in Thunderbolts. It may be, if we see him, it's going to be a post-credit sequence, most likely. But I just feel like I do feel like he needs to be introduced before Doomsday. And that's kind of the unfortunate thing about what's going on. Well, we talked about this, and I don't want to, look, far be it from me to start yelling at the clouds again. I don't want to rehash what was said last week, but that's kind of the problem with recasting and the fact that they won't recast. They had this direction they were going with Kang, and Kang the Conqueror is an interesting villain. He's a powerful villain, and he's worthy of the Avengers to fight. But, because of Jonathan Majors' personal decisions in his life that he messed up, and I'm not even going to say made mistakes. He made just some bad choices. It's what they chose to do with him and his role is fine, I guess. It's what they got to do. I don't understand this aversion to recasting. It's not like Terrence Howard has ever come back and threatened to beat up Don Cheadle or complained about what they did, what Marvel Studios did with him when he demanded more money and they cast Don Cheadle instead of him. I don't know what the problem with recasting is. And I don't want to sound angry about it. I'm just saying, I'm glad to be getting Doctor Doom. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with Tony Stark as Doctor Doom. And I keep saying Tony Stark because he may very well be playing Victor Von Doom. I don't know, though. None of us really know. It's an intriguing, interesting kind of thing that's going to be going down. What I'm looking at this movie and seeing is the introduction, the introduction of this team, an adventure with this team, the family aspect of it. And there's been some things said that, again, the outrage crew, that hates everything that's going on, is taken, I think they've blown out of proportion, because Vanessa Kirby, is that her name, that's playing Sue Storm, made a comment about how she's leaning into an aspect of Sue Storm from later on in the comics where she was Malice. And you know what? Sue became more powerful and more of a strong female character as time went on, because early on she wasn't. And you can just, I'm sorry, when you read those early comics, you see that. But eventually they begin to get her right. They begin to get her tone right. They begin to get, and she is considered one of the more powerful people in the Marvel universe. And she's very capable, and she's a great part of that team. And the Invisible Woman is a fantastic, no pun intended, none taken, character and part of that team. So I think that what she's had to say about that character is more about the '60s version of Sue Storm rather than rather than some kind of ultra feminist thing that's going on. And then Eddie, I can't think of the guy's name. He's Eddie in Stranger Things, who's playing Johnny Storm, mentioned that they're scaling back on some of the way that Johnny was in the comics early on. Again, early on. Look, Johnny's brash. He's overbearing. You know, he's a ladies' man, that kind of thing. I don't think they're going to necessarily, what some people would say, neuter him, but I do think that they're going to maybe, just they're going to focus in on the more annoying little brother type stuff than an irresponsible and hothead and that sort of thing, rather than oh yeah, don't hit the like button as well. Thank you, Ted. Ted says hit the like button. So that's an interesting point Tenton makes. Recasting creates controversy. Disney loves and leans into the free advertisement created from controversy. They seem to, but recently the controversy-free advertisement hasn't done them so well. So we'll see. Anyway, I think what you're going to have is the mature versions of Johnny and Sue that came about later on in the 70s and 80s, and Johnny goes on a real journey in his life, and now he's back to kind of being a doofus in the comics and funny or whatever the case may be. Can I go back to the Shalabal thing? I don't want to sound too hateful. My point, I said Norrin Rad's done. You're not going to see him. What I don't appreciate, and I guess this is the thing that really irks me and has irked me when it comes to these type things. It's this sector of fandom, and I even tweeted out on X, at Geek Out Loud on X. I even tweeted out the other day, I'm so excited for all of the Shalabal experts to come out of the woodwork. Because that's what happens. You have people who you cannot say anything bad about Marvel, Disney, Lucasfilm, whatever, and these people start to come out of the woodworks and they begin to express to you and tell you, well, this is who Shalabal was, and she was a Silver Surfer and all this stuff. And it's just like, stop it. People can have a problem with this, and it is a legit problem that people have, because when they say these things, the intent is not to be hateful. The intent is to say, this isn't the best idea. We've had Norrin Rad in a movie, but the problem is that's a movie that's generally panned by a lot of people, even though it's good. It's not a bad Fantastic Four movie, and Lawrence Fishburne and Doug Jones paired up great as Norrin Rad, as Silver Surfer. More of that, it's just unfortunate that because we are so bent on doing this kind of stuff, that there are great characters that are going to get just left out in the cold and never be used in this medium, because now you can't. Remember when at Age of Ultron there was a toy release with Captain America on a motorcycle, and everybody went just berserk because Captain America wasn't on the motorcycle. Black Widow was. Remember that? Remember the Where's Ray in 2015 with all the Star Wars toys and everything? You can't win. And so now they've created a situation where this actress, and now what we're going to hear is this actress is going to talk about all the hate she's getting online and everything else, when nobody's hating on her. She's not her character. They're going to be saying that they don't like the idea of casting, of using this version of the Silver Surfer. So Ted says, I wonder if it'll be an origin story. They'll start the movie with their powers already. We don't need to see it a third time. I don't think it's going to be an origin story. I think you're going to see that in flashback. And that's one of the other things I wanted to mention that I really like is there's a shot here. Let's see if I can get to it. There's a shot here of the rocket ship going up into space. And it looks like the footage of it looks like, NASA footage of a rocket going up into space. It's really cool. I think what you're going to have is you're going to have you're going to have it all. They're already going to have their powers. That's what we're seeing in this trailer. I don't think that because when they're talking and they're like, are we safe? He's like, I don't know. And then we're like, I think we're opening up with that and going to have their origin maybe during the opening. Well, Mr. C, a layman, says, I think the FF will do what the Incredible Hulk movie did and have their origin during the credits. I absolutely agree, and I think that's the way to go. I think that's going to be the smart thing to do, because the origin story of the Fantastic Four is almost a movie in and of itself. And that's why I say I think maybe in flashback we'll see things like Mole Man and the monsters, attacking the city and that sort of thing, like you got in the first issue. I'm wondering here. Well, let me say this: we gotta wind her on down here, and hey, look, we've only gone an hour and a half. I feel like there was some other things I wanted to talk about, but that's okay. We're going to open a Star War here in a minute. We're going to open the Bespin security guard, aka Hector Spinoza. Hector Spinoza. Helder Spinoza, not Hector. That sounds like Spinoza's an Earth name. Way to go, Star Wars. Way to go, Hasbro. It's a nice card. Now I'm kind of feeling weird about opening this up. Now I'm feeling like other people. Norrin Rad ranks on level with Marvel and Captain America in regards to being honorable. Absolutely. Courageous and never giving up. It's disrespectful to subvert Norrin Rad for Shalabal. Absolutely. I can't agree, I can't agree more. I can't disagree. I'm sorry. Let me start that sentence over. I can't disagree. That's from Tintin in the chat. For those of you who are listening, that's Tintin in the chat saying that. What is happening with my voice? Mr. Haney. Wait. He was Mr. Haney. The man who talked like this. The sheriff of Nottingham. Save your sermon, preacher. It ain't Sunday, What I was saying is I can't disagree with that sentiment. I agree. I think that they're just doing a disservice to the character. And I know it's a comic book character, and I'm a grown man. But that doesn't mean my tail's not going to be in the seat later on this year when that movie comes out. I'm looking forward to seeing it and seeing what they do. And if I walk out disappointed, I walk out disappointed. And I'll let you know that I'm disappointed. But I'm not going to I'm not going to get all worked up over it either. We just don't have time for all that, ladies and gentlemen. Superman Day has come and gone since last we were together, and on Superman Day they released some behind the scenes footage. We didn't really see anything new that we haven't seen. I think we're going to start seeing that Superman hype machine ramp up here soon, so we'll have some stuff to talk about. Oh, Mr. C, a layman, says the 90s Silver Surfer animated series was pretty good despite not having the FF. I never really saw it. What really intrigued me was the animation was neat. It was a different kind of thing. I missed a lot of those 90s Marvel cartoons. I think that cartoon's on Disney Plus with several others. Years ago, before all this stuff was readily available, you could get things, through the electronic auction bay. You could find things, and I got a set of DVDs that had the entire Incredible Hulk 90s cartoon on them, and I watched it because I was a Hulk guy. But I've never really watched the Fantastic Four cartoon there were two cartoons in the 90s of the Fantastic Four. I have one that was just randomly given to me at Christmas one year, and I never popped it in and watched it. And then there was the one that was, alongside like the Iron Man and the Hulk and all that Fantastic Four. I think they try to stay pretty comic accurate with some of that stuff, but I don't know. That's one of those things I'd have to go back and kind of check out and watch. So, that's what I've got. That's where we're at on this episode. Let's take a break again. I'm not going to be coming back and yelling at clouds, but we'll put that old man up there anyway. We'll take a break and we'll be right back. One more break and we'll be back.
As we near the 22nd century, mutated creatures are more prevalent than ever before. First, there was King Kong. Japan had Godzilla. Africa had the elephant. As kaiju continue to plague our fragile Earth, we must all remain ever. Remember these safety tips in the event of a kaiju attack. Evacuate major cities. Kaiju have never attacked small rural towns. Get to the country or a farm as fast as possible. Stay away from the ocean. Landlocked areas rarely have anything to fear, as the creatures tend to emerge from the seas. Use women as a distraction. Kaiju seem to be drawn to screaming blondes or tiny twin ladies. Gents, you'll be better protected if you've got a gal handy. If you memorize these simple life-saving steps, you too can live beyond the next kaiju cataclysm.
Old pipes coming through. John Phillips over in the Mixler chat says, "You all right there, Peter Brady?" Struggling with it, but I'll be fine. Is it Superman or James Gunn? I don't know. We'll see. That's one of those things we'll just have to see, isn't it? How about those people walking across our lawn? Yeah. Did y'all ever have someone like that for real in your neighborhood? The get off my lawn person? We did. When I was a small kid living in Athens, Georgia, our family lived on the corner of our street, and next door to us was one of our friends who she would sometimes play with all of us and other times wouldn't. And then the next house down, I believe the next house down was a friend of ours. Okay. No. You had our next door neighbor, then you had the get off my lawn lady, and then you had our other friend down the road there. And so we had to either go around her, or maybe she was after him. It doesn't matter. But I know that we were scared to get in her yard, so we would have to either ride our bikes around her yard, or we could not go through her yard because she did not want us on her grass. She did not want us on her grass at all. So whenever I say get off my lawn, I really genuinely remember someone who told us to get off her lawn. Now, did I just do the thing where I tried to give more detail than I needed to? Yes. I should have said there was a lady in our neighborhood a few houses down from us that we had to usually go past her house to get to our friend's house, and she did not like us going through her yard, so we didn't. Having said that, I'm a man of my word. Let's open a Star War. This is Helder Spinoza. He is the Bespin security guard. Here's the reason I'm hesitant to open this. This is a card that mimics a card from the original run, the original vintage Star Wars run. This is the Vintage Collection VC 233. You can see the back there. It has some cool cross cells. Stormtrooper, the other Bespin security guard. Is that a gunner? Imperial gunner, yeah. And R2 de Toa with his sensor scope. Generally, when I open these things to preserve the card and the look of the card, I will take an X-Acto knife of some sort, and I will, cut around and preserve the card. This time, I may. Ooh, that glue's on there good. I may just rip the bubble off, and there we go. Bubble ripped off. It's open, ladies and gentlemen. I have opened a Star Wars. Live on YouTube, opening a Star Wars. So let's pull him out of his plastic coffin there, and we'll. I always go for the little gun first, I guess. I don't know. I lied. That was a total butt lie from me. I do not always go for the little gun first when I open these things. I pull the figure out first. either by popping him out, getting a leg and pulling, and there he is like this, like so. Man, these little guys feel so fragile compared to like your 6-inch bad boys. And these joints don't really do the greatest. But anyhow, look at this guy's got some articulation to him. He's got elbows. He's got shoulder rotating. He's got a head that will swivel and go up and down. They've got a ball joint at the chest so he can get a little bit of back motion, like looking up, kind of thing going on. He can swivel this way with that too, but he's got no waist cut. Legs go straight out, bend at the knee. Is there a double bend on these things? No, it's just a ball joint at the knee. And there's a little bit of ankle there as well. So, Helder Spinoza, man, he can limbo. I'm going to stand him here for right now. And then we'll get the little gun. I always get the little gun out second. I didn't mean to tell a whole butt lie to y'all people. I just, y'all people, how unprofessional can you be when you're doing a podcast live and say, y'all people? Also, how country can you be, y'all people? Hey, y'all people, watch this. I'm going to get this little blaster out of here. He's going to pew, pew. That's what I'm going to did. That's what Justin Wilson used to always say. That's what I'm going to did. Now, here's the problem with some of these newfangled guns. When I pulled it out, I don't know if you can tell this or not. My little hands get in the way. But it kind of bent, but it's popping back, so that's fine. All right. So we're going to put this in his hand and see what we can do here to do that. I need my readers. But I got very very irresponsible with my readers, ladies and gentlemen. I took some to the office, even though I had a pair at the office, and I didn't bring them back. And then I thought I'd brought them back, but I hadn't. And then I realized they were in my suit pocket, and I ended up leaving it in the car a while ago when I got home from work. So there he is, holding his gun and everything. I'm sorry, YouTube, holding his pew-pew. So stupid. Say words, everybody. It's okay. That's not a bad figure, to be honest with you. You'll see Hector Spinoza again. I know it's Helder, but I'm going to call him Hector. You'll see Hector Spinoza again for Star Wars Day next month as we tackle Empire Strikes Back through the lens of mediocre action figure photography. Is that a promise? I want it to be. I desperately want it to be. I want it to be a promise to you, my friends, that we will do. Can't dance like Mon Mothma. John Phillips in the Mixler chat. Can't dance like Mon Mothma. No, nobody can. Nobody can. Glad to catch you live. You the man, Steve. No, you the man, Chris. Thanks for catching us live. I don't know how many people we had live throughout the night. Right now, there's 10 viewers over on YouTube. I don't know if we had people on Rumble or not. I don't know. Subscribe, like, share, comment, all of those things, and let us know what you're thinking of what we're talking about. Have you got opinions? I bet you do. And that's great. I want you to have opinions. Ooh, we've had 4 views over here, 2 unique views at Rumble. So that's exciting. And we're still live over there, so that's great to know. No comments over there. Ooh, Kratos says, I want this to be so good, but I have so little faith in Marvel. Nornrad, we knew you well. Oh, man. So the Rumble chat doesn't show up over on StreamYard. That's okay. Kratos G. Did you used to be Kratos Joe, Kratos G? Comment, let me know. Anyway, everybody, I opened a Star Wars. I think that's going to close it. What if, when we're on YouTube, we end the YouTubes by opening a Star Wars or a Marvel Legend or just something else that needs to be open? I like opening things. That's fun. That's something we can do. I feel like Mr. Rogers right now. Do you like opening things? I sure do. Let's open another toy together. maybe some other time when we have toys to open up together. Here's the thing. I have a toy I'm looking at right now that I kind of want to open, but I don't know that I need to open that one, but I probably could, and I could get rid of some packaging that's just taking up too much space. It's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling you're growing inside, and when you wake up ready to say, I think I'll have a snappy new day. Isn't that what he's saying? Isn't that a Mr. Rogers closing? That's the Mr. Rogers closing theme song, I believe. Don't hold me to that. Don't hold me to that. You know, I did mess up. I should have had my Silver Surfer over here. I should have had all kinds of little props for everybody to look at and see and enjoy over this way. But alas, I did not. So, maybe next time. See, these are things that I need. Tintin was gracious enough to send me a list of things I needed. And let me explain what I got locked up on. I was trying to turn something into a GIF that would have a transparent background so I could overlay it on my image here that has like the like, subscribe stuff and everything. But instead, I could never get that. And let me see if I can do this real quick while we're live to show you what we ended up with that I really thought was going to, nope, that's not the right one. General assets. There we go. General assets. Nope. See, it's not even there. Dadgummit. Did I not save it as an MP4 file? Gee whiz. Give me just a second. Give me just a little more time. Huh. I sure do wish I knew what I was doing. Here we go. No, that's not. No. Why can't I just... I don't understand how these things work sometimes. Okay. Let's see. What is this? Nope, that's too big. Maybe this will... I'll show you what I'm trying to do. Once again, Spider Shan, wish I'd been able to jump in at the beginning of the show. Still glad to catch part of it. Oh, you're catching the worst part. Everybody knows that when I'm not ready to shut down, but I have to anyway, that I just start to fizzle. And so that's where we're at here. So this is what I tried to do, and I don't even know if this will work. Yeah, see there? Oh, sorry, I got so much going on. See, the blackness that you see here on the screen is supposed to be transparent. Unfortunately, I could not convert the GIF. I had to take a video and remove the chroma color background and make it transparent. And then I had to take that video and export it into something else to try to make it a GIF, but then it would not export with the background. So what you see down there where it says the thumbs up and the subscribe and the ringing of the bell and everything, that is supposed to be, you're supposed to be seeing that with this face, over it and everything. Unfortunately, I don't know what I'm doing. I believe Jeff Lane said earlier, Steve needs a producer. That's true. Steve does need a producer. I love Mr. Rogers. Everybody loves Mr. Rogers. The world became a sadder place. In fact, I think you can trace all the world's problems, not all of them, but the recent problems we've had in our world, I think you can trace back to the death of said Mr. Rogers. So, yeah, that's what we got. I don't know how to end this thing, so let's just end it. How about that? Let's just call her quits. We'll just we'll call her quits and shut her down. The email is geekoutonline@gmail.com. Geekoutonline@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you there. We read emails on the show when we get emails. It's one of the things that go back all the way to the beginning with Geek Out Loud. And we'd love to hear from you if you're so inclined. We're on X at Geek Out Loud. We're on Instagram at Real Geek Out Loud. We'd love to have you follow us in those places. If you're not subscribed to the YouTube, to the Rumble, please subscribe in either of those places, preferably both. Help us start to reach all the goals we've got to reach. I believe the goal is 1,000 listeners. Denton says the black background's the epitome of what we expect. At least the computer didn't crash. Enough said. Well, Tintin, that's true. I've actually brought in a machine to use instead of the crashing computer that will crash if I'm just sitting here watching a YouTube video these days. So anyhow, Radio Wave Dave, Star Wars Celebration always reminds me. May the Force. Dave was, me too, buddy. Me too. May the Force be with you as well. But I don't like ending a show that way, so I'll end the show this way. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you around the Golaverse. Have a good one, everybody.